Halo dan selamat datang di Moonshot, a show by Sequoia India and Southeast Asia that profiles innovative startups and inspiring founders who are dreaming big, making an impact, and driving change across the region. I'm your host, Dewi Fabri, and throughout this podcast, we'll be introducing you to founders and thought leaders who are helping shape the region's startup ecosystem. We hope this podcast will give you fresh ideas on how to start and scale an enduring company. Indonesia is one of the world's largest producers and exporters of coffee. And while you can get a cup of coffee just about anywhere, most of the beans are exported, meaning that high-quality ones are often expensive and beyond an average Indonesian's budget. This means that most locals typically drink instant options or powdered coffee. Kopi Kenangan, which was founded in 2018, is changing this with its grab-and-go model. And though the brand is only 4 years old, it's already got a cult following among many Indonesians. With us to tell us more about how the company is building a well-loved brand is Kopi Kenangan's co-founder Edward Tirtanata and Sequoia India and Southeast Asia's Rohit Agarwal. Rohit, Ed, welcome to the show. Ed, why did you decide to set up Kopi Kenangan and enter what could be perceived as an already crowded market?
So just to give a little bit of background about myself, prior on building Kopi Kenangan, I was actually the co-founder of Lewis & Carroll Tea, which is, as per today, is the largest premium tea house chain in Indonesia. And what I mean by the largest is literally just 7 to 8 stores, right? Why we could not expand beyond 7 to 8 stores is primarily because I realized that most of the cafe in Indonesia, whether it be coffee or tea, they're selling a cup of tea or coffee at 40,000 rupiah. If you do a quick analysis, 40,000 rupiah times 30 days, that's 1.2 million, or approximately 30% of the minimum wage back then. So that's when I quickly realized that, okay, it seems like in coffee, there's a big missing gap, right? But most Indonesians are drinking instant coffee at 1,000 rupiah. And I'm sure that many of you here can imagine that most instant coffee is just, flavoring, over-roasted coffee and sugar. And that's what I realized, that there's a big missing gap in the market. People want good, affordable cup of coffee, but the only option are just something that is really cheap or something that is really expensive and unaffordable. And that's why we decided to open Kopi Kenangan in 2017 with that missing gap in mind.
So Rohit, when you first met Ed in 2019, Kopi Kenangan already had 56 stores, and they were just starting to build out this online, offline, new retail business model. Talk to us about the business model and what excited you about it.
I think when I first met Ed, I remember he brought me a cup of Kopi Kenangan Mantan. It was honestly very different from what I had expected. I mean, it was sweet, it was milky. It was, to put it simply, the kind of coffee I'd grown up drinking. But now that, I live in Singapore, I've grown used to sort of the cappuccino and the Americanos served by all the multinationals. So I remember telling Ed, this is pretty nostalgic for me because, this is the kind of coffee probably my mom would make. And it was like a very, very sweet start, if you will. But, as we delved further into it, we realized that there are many aspects of design choices that Ed and team had made, which were very authentic and, frankly, first principles thinking. So, it was not accidental that the coffee was sweet. Ed understood from his days in Lewis and Carroll that, no matter how much you try to copy or, you try to bring the American recipes to Asia, Asians still love sweet. And so when he started Kopi Kenangan, he had first developed a sweet recipe. He also intentionally made recipes that were cold instead of the cappuccinos and the Americanos. And there were just sort of more and more design choices as we looked deeper and deeper into Ed and team's way of thinking that resonated a lot with us. I think on the market, what we had not realized, I mean, like what we had initially gone in thinking was, it's food retail and, F&B has been a tough neighborhood. There's a lot of mortality in the sector. But what we understood once we looked a little bit deeper and scratched the surface was that coffee is probably a very different game than the rest of F&B. I mean, first of all, majority of F&B suffers from fatigue. I love my burger from XYZ place and I can have it maybe once a month, twice a month, once a week, but like that's it, right? Like I can't go back to that place every single day. Coffee, on the other hand, has immense loyalty. If I like coffee from the coffee shop downstairs from my office or near my home, I just keep going back to it. And I think second up, coffee's probably got the most sorted supply chain of all F&B. I mean, there are no fresh ingredients. You've got like coffee beans, milk, sugar, and water. You can mix them and make n number of drinks. So it's very easy to manage, very highly scalable. I was joking with my team internally that this is exactly like SaaS, what we VCs are so excited about. It's got high gross margin, it's got very high repeatability, and it's super scalable. So a combination of a lot of these interesting design choices that Ed and team were making, whether it be on SKUs or on the format, making it grab and go, making the store a lot more compact, leveraging the food delivery players initially to deliver to people's homes, and then gradually building out their own app to talk direct to their customers, get a lot of data on their consumption habits and so on and so forth to further improvise the product, choose store locations. I mean, we sort of could see whether we could sort of see that this had all the makings of an iconic consumer company, and we hit it off from there with Ed and team.
Now that model, Ed, really helped you shelter the storm when COVID hit, right? All around the world, the F&B industry suffered, but what you had built is this really strong technology layer that helped Kopi Kenangan scale up the delivery side of the business and add new products and even stores that cater to the fact that people were working from home now. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
What keeps Kopi Kenangan going during the pandemic is our one cup, one customer approach, where no matter how big the company is, at the end of the day, it all comes down to serving one good cup of coffee. When COVID hits the world in 2020, it really is a test of resilience to the company. And maybe if we have to take a step back, we need to be reminded on what Kopi Kenangan is, right? Kopi Kenangan is all about brand love, right? We would like to give the best cup of affordable coffee to our consumer with, with a 5-star service. That is the core of the business. However, there's the tech-enabled part that really differentiate us compared to other coffee shop as well. Because if you think about it, any retail has a fixed cost, right, of both salary and rent. And any incremental productivity that you can bring to your store will help us pay that fixed cost inside the business. And that is why with our new retail concept, we do believe that technology can improve store productivity. And then if we trace it back to COVID-19, what does COVID-19 do to our business? Basically, it reduces store productivity, right? First and foremost, we tried to really relaunch our UI UX for contactless commerce, because back then we did a lot of FGD. In fact, in Kopi Kenangan, we spent hundreds and millions of rupiah every month to make sure that we do FGD constantly to make sure to understand what is the consumer's pain point. And we did FGD on what is your pain point on using the app. And apparently, many of our customers feel that our UI UX is not simple enough. The color is not user-friendly enough, and that's when we actually tried to change the color from a coffee color inside our app to the Gojek ordering color, because that's the color that people are familiar with, right? And as a result, actually conversion rate jumped up by around 20 or 30%. So and other than that, obviously after we improve our contactless commerce, we invest a lot in our delivery as well. And what started off where is a purely offline business without much traction into the app. As per today, we are the #1 F&B app in Southeast Asia in terms of active user. And right now, 30% of our business comes to our own app with the vision of expanding it to 40% by end of this year. We rely a lot on our loyalty program and our hyper personalization. Those are the two pillars that we kind of use in order to make sure that we can increase store productivity through both of them. But then as per today, because we own our customer, this is a D2C brand, right? We know who our customers are, who are ordering what and when and how frequent. And that's when we can actually decide, okay, what kind of loyalty points do we want to give them and how can we be creative about it. For example, I think, if you are purchasing Kopi Kenangan, you will get loyalty in the form of Kenangan point. Right now, we are working so that people can actually convert that Kenangan point into Bitcoin, into airline miles. And then other than that, right now, we are really shifting away from, one size fits all promo engine. Right now, we are trying to do a lot of user segmentation. Right now, all of the users in Kopi Kenangan are segmented into 7 different customer bucket, right? And we really know which customer at one end of the spectrum is at the risk of churn, and on the other end of the spectrum are customers that are VIP. If you want to give promo, give it to the one that is at risk of churning, right? And of course, on top of that, we don't just use technology on the consumer-facing part, but we actually use it to expand our store as well. We have our customer data, we know where they are, and back then, actually, we had a little bit of controversy during our board meeting when, pandemic hits. We should stop expanding, we should, cut CapEx and OpEx. But I told them, no, the key of getting out of the pandemic is to actually expand further. Because if you look into the data, customer did not disappear, they just moved to somewhere else, right? And this is when we can really use our heat map data and we try to locate where our customers are and open a store near them. And as a result, we are profitable again, and customer and store productivity actually increases in some store archetype, actually increases compared to the pre-pandemic. And that is all due to the power of technology and data.
So help our listeners understand, right? When Rohit met you in 2019, you had 56 stores. Because of all these things that you've done till now, how many stores are you at now? How big is Kopi Kenangan?
So right now we have over 600 over stores. Back then when I met Rohit, we only have stores in Greater Jakarta. But then right now, Kopi Kenangan is pretty much in every single big island in Indonesia, right? And we do believe that going forward, our new retail grab and go business model will expand not just in Indonesia, but then overseas as well. At least that is the vision.
Ed, just building on that, I think what you guys have done, leveraging technology to navigate through COVID, is simply incredible. I think the part about technology is that, only 5-10% of it is visible. People only see the app or the ordering system that they can use to order the coffee. But, the amount of data that you guys process to make decisions on an everyday basis, from which new SKUs to launch to which customers to send promos to, which customers to, where are your customers, where to open stores, like all this invisible stuff which you do is actually even more critical and translates into the immense amount of user loyalty and brand love that you've been able to build. One of our partners has a philosophy that the hardest things are the toughest to measure. All the good things in life, love, honesty, kindness, courage, these things are very hard to measure. And I think the same goes true for brands. Like products have a formula, so they can be copied and, you can replicate. But brands have a soul and, they can't be described sometimes, they can't be formulated, they don't have a formula. And therefore, brands are very hard to copy. I would love to understand from you, how were you thinking when you were first coming up with the Kopi Kenangan brand? How has that changed since? And, how important is the brand for you in Kopi Kenangan?
So I think brand is everything, right, in a business like us. Because, if you think about it, for example, in McDonald's, right, can you think of 5 better burger than McDonald's? I can think of 10, right? It's very easy. Like every product can be copied, right? But then brand cannot be replicated just like that. Why do people keep on going back to McDonald's? Because, there is brand love, right? We even, in one of our FGD, we actually show 4 different logos, sorry. Audi, McDonald's, and Kopi Kenangan, and Mercedes-Benz. And we didn't show the typography, we just showed, the M, the golden R, the Kopi Kenangan heart, and the Audi logo. In fact, most people recognize the Golden Arc and Kopi Kenangan heart in Indonesia, but I guess most of the ladies inside the FGD could not recognize the Audi logo, right? And that's when we realized that, okay, that means we are really getting brand equity, and that's why we every year we do FGD to make sure that our brand equity stays the same or increasing, right? And how do we get that brand equity? Simply because simply by doing the right thing to your customer, honestly. And that's the mentality that we are trying to implement inside Kopi Kenangan. That no matter how much funding we get, whatever our status is, at the end of the day, we need to serve the best cup of coffee to our customer. And it's not just from the recipe, right? But it's actually about are you giving the best service to your customer? Are you being polite? Do you ask like how was your day to your customer? Those are the little things that matter. And if you do it consistently and over time, only good things will happen to your brand. Even though there's COVID-19, even though there is, a supply chain shortage, then coffee price goes up. If you have this brand power, at the end of the day, you can be an enduring brand that will be, here for many years to come.
Just building on that, Ed, the Kopi Kenangan name, right? Did that have a part to play in it? I mean, it literally means the coffee you know, right?
So whenever you are starting a brand, honestly, people would not care of what you're serving, right? Or would not care whether are you being polite to the customer or not. So we really need a branding that is differentiated, right? Something that will make people remember, because the first funnel of any brand equity is always awareness, right? People have to be aware that you exist. And that is why I decided, instead of creating a coffee name of, for example, Arabica or Robusta, that is generic, we decided to go with Kopi Kenangan, which literally translates into coffee memory. And then our number one SKU is called Kopi Kenangan Mantan, or literally translate into memory of my ex, right? And we even have like a definition for that coffee when we first started. It literally means a sweet memory that is not there anymore, but occasionally pops up into your mind. So those are the kind of little things that we do that is different, that really create interest to our customer. And and it applies to any business, whatever business you want to create. You want to create a burger brand. If you want to call yourself, Mac Burger, most probably nobody's gonna remember you, right? But then, you need to create something that will sound different, that makes people want to try, and that's when you can really start to get brand love out of your customer.
And that's a very cool story. And I remember the first burst of public awareness came when lots of young people started posting their pictures with the Kopi Kenangan cup and started tagging their ex in it on Instagram. And that was what drove lines and lines of customers outside Kopi Kenangan stores in the early days. So that's a very cool story. But Ed, as we discussed, brands evolve. You started with this cool story about coffee, which is very Instagrammy, and lots of people are posting pictures of and so on, and that worked. But as you've now scaled to 600 plus stores across tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 cities in Indonesia, and you'll probably also want to go international. There are lots of dimensions of this brand that have needed to scale. And I remember there was this one moment when we were debating the name itself, whether we should retain Kenangan in the name or not, because as we go international, it might not be intuitive for people to understand what Kenangan means, especially for all the non-Bahasa regions where we would want to expand to. And a very senior marketer from the industry was recommending us to go for an English name, which would make our brand a little universal and easier for people to understand what it means and so on. But you did not agree. And I think that's also another very cool story about how you continue to make authentic design choices, not just when you started, but continuing to hold to those principles even as you're scaling. I would love for you to share that with our listeners.
So basically, I mean, that same senior marketer actually not didn't just suggest us an English name, but suggest us Kiki the Komodo as a mascot. So it's a pretty funny Komodo. I mean, literally, there's a cartoon of Komodo with the tongue coming out, right? And I asked, hey, why Komodo? And they said because Indonesia have Komodo is a dinosaur and it's something that is very differentiated. But honestly, I said, wow, I cannot imagine myself opening a coffee brand with a lizard as the logo. Even though maybe it will create interest, but there is a thin line, right, between creating a genuine interest and disgusted interest, right? So yeah, it's you need a little bit of feeling, I would say, and gut in this case. Because honestly, whenever in whatever business you do, you need to be data centric. But then when you're starting a business, sometimes this feeling or gut is really important, and it doesn't need to be an English name. It's actually quite generic if you try to do it like that. Your brand needs to have a soul. Your brand needs to have a DNA, and we need to stay true to that brand story that we have, right?
You've created this massive awareness at a national scale in Indonesia. And I think you often credit it to the value of touch and feel, the fact that, you're not just existent in an app, but, you exist out there in the real world and people can see your stores and, uh, drives a lot of that mass awareness. And I think, especially in the digital era, a lot of startup founders that are building digital products actually underappreciate the value of this touch and feel. And I remember we were discussing this with you that, even among the digital players, arguably the greatest brand is Apple, which has a touch and feel component to it compared to a Google or a Facebook. And that actually enhances its brand awareness, brand love, and its consumer love. So, talk a little bit about how important is this touch and feel. In fact, your product's got taste to it as well. So how important are these sensory communications with your customers in building a brand?
It's very important, right? This touch and feel, because whenever you're starting something, you don't have big budget to get David Beckham or Messi, right, as your brand ambassador. So that's why in Kopi Kenangan we really focus on this touch and feel. For example, there is Starbucks that is selling their coffee with an espresso machine. And then there are a bunch of other coffee shops as well that's selling coffee with an espresso machine. But then nobody is selling, coffee at 20,000 rupiah with an espresso machine. And that's when we decided, okay, let's get an espresso machine, and then let's get a high-end premium milk, and let's get an Arabica bean as well. And we really show it to our customer, right? Whenever you are coming into the store, you'll be welcomed with a smell of freshly grinded and freshly brewed coffee. For example, many of our copycats try to imitate the business model as well, right? And the recipe. But then none of them actually would want to give the best coffee machine to their customer. They feel, okay lah, I think I can just get like a 2 million rupiah coffee machine and most probably it will look the same, right? But that's what copycat do, right? They cut corners and they try to be like Kopi Kenangan, but most probably they are not able to replicate the same commitment that we have to our customers.
And I think it goes back again to you can copy what's visible, but you can't copy what's not visible. And 80% of what goes into building a brand is not visible. I remember another incident, and it goes on to maybe explore for our listeners a little bit of, you cannot brand yourself with everything that's cool out there. And I know we had this debate, and one of the investors was recommending that you guys go more aggressively and brand yourselves as a technology F&B player versus a coffee player, because a lot of your competitors were doing that. They were sort of very aggressively pushing their app as the main point of differentiation, and you continued to stick to pushing your coffee as the main point of differentiation, because you said people come to us for the coffee and not for the app. And I think it's super important that companies know what their strength is and differentiate around their strength and build their brand from that position of strength versus what's trendy. And today we hear a lot of buzzwords in this space, from tech F&B to food technology to grab and go to asset light to a house of brands to D2C brands. How do you make sense of all this? And what's your definition of Kopi Kenangan's brand positioning?
First and foremost, we need to remember that at the end of the day, people drink the coffee, not the app, right? Yeah. So, that is the core value of Kopi Kenangan. We are not a tech company; we're a tech-enabled company, meaning that at the end of the day, if people are happy with what they touch, feel, and taste inside Kopi Kenangan, then most probably we can actually increase store productivity or make sure that we can increase revenue inside the store by using technology. That is our approach. So and that's how we are able to generate a lot of revenue, right, into the business, because we do sell a good cup of coffee with much loved branding. As shown in our latest Kantar or Nielsen research, which indicate that we are the number one local coffee player, and by far as well in terms of brand equity. Basically we are a coffee brand that is tech enabled, I would say.
Got it. And Ed, while we are on this topic, you're not just a coffee player anymore. And we have Chico, which is our fried chicken brand. We have Cheetah Roti, which is our bread snack. And we have Kenangan Manis. And you're coming up with more and more concepts to provide Indonesians with a affordable and premium dose of their favorite food. How are you thinking about these new brands? I mean, we've debated a lot whether these should all be Kopi Kenangan branded or whether these should have an identity of their own. We have obviously gone down the path of creating new brands for different food categories, and I think it's resonating very well with customers. But from your perspective as a founder, how do you think about all these different brands? Do you see them all having like a mother-child relationship, that Kopi Kenangan is the mothership, and each of these brands feel a lot like Kopi Kenangan? Or are these just sort of very independently thought, independently built brands that look like a nice collection of different food brands, but don't have necessarily a lot of DNA similarity?
Why we created those brands actually comes down to listening to our customer. One thing that you notice throughout this conversation, we listen a lot, right, to our customer, whether it be on our app UI UX, whether it be on is our coffee too sweet, or our gula aren taste is too strong, for example. We always listen to our customer, whether it be to FGD, whether it be to our customer complaint. And that is why, even though we are already at 600 over stores, we only have 20 complaints per month. And I think, and I'm really proud of that fact from Kopi Kenangan, because, and in fact, one region in Kopi Kenangan have zero complaint. So, because we keep on listening, right? What went wrong inside our business in Kopi Kenangan, and how can we improve it? And we really take every complaint seriously. And one of the things that we listen to from our customer is the fact that they feel, hey, coffee is great, but I would like a piece of bread to go along with our coffee. And that is why we decided to then let's launch a bread brand called Cheetah Roti. And since we feel that this is such a good opportunity to actually build a new brand out of Kopi Kenangan, that is why we created a new branding on top of it, right? Because at the end of the day, it's not just a brand play, but it's a distribution play as well, right? Imagine this, when we have 2,000 stores and then we are selling, 20 million cups to 10 million customer. Imagine just selling one piece of bread a day to that 10 million customer. That is worth, 10 million bread a day, 10 million bread a day. So that is the power of compounding distribution, and that is what we are trying to achieve. And imagine that if we can add a branding element to it, that is powerful, and that is what we are trying to achieve in Kopi Kenangan. We are trying to create new verticals that has a strong brand awareness as well, and eventually, we'll be able to become a company that is not, just focusing on one vertical, but then we have many different verticals that are all pulled around our digital, our both online and offline distribution.
Ed, there's so many things that early stage founders can take away from what you've just said as they build out their brand. But if you had to give the top 3 things, what would they be?
First and foremost is that every brand is built on two group of people. The first is your customer. That is the most important thing. You need to listen to them. You need to make sure that they are attracted to it by the touch and feel. And if they are happy, most probably your investor is gonna be happy too, and which translate into sales. And then second, you need to actually listen to your employee as well. Your company is only as good as the people you hire. In fact, Rohit told me this, and we really did take this to our heart. And in the beginning of the pandemic, we quickly announced that nobody is gonna get pay cut, nobody's gonna get fired, because this is actually the toughest time, and we need to be there for our employee. And we even have, I even take a 1 rupiah salary during that tough times, because I do believe that if your employee is protected, if they feel safe about their job, and then they can serve our customers well, right? But then if they cannot even feed their family, most probably they cannot even serve our customer well, right? And then I like to say this as well. Whenever you are starting something, you gotta start small. So think big, start small, and fail fast. Because whatever you do, right, you gotta do something that is worthwhile, right? And for myself, I want to create the largest coffee company in Asia, and that is why I'm thinking big. But I start small. Start small by giving the best cup of coffee, 1 cup, 1 customer at a time, right? I failed many times in life, and your time at your age is honestly worth a lot more than money. So that is why you need to fail fast as well, just to make sure that you are doing something that is worthwhile.
Wow, that's a lot for early stage founders to think about. Rohit, what would your advice be?
I think I would say build and lead from the heart, like build products that you genuinely want to build and that you're passionate about. Otherwise, it's very hard to be authentic. And, as we heard from Ed today, building enduring companies, enduring brands is a lot about tenacity, authenticity. It's a very long journey. It's not a straight line. And in those moments when things are not working out, when you're running out of capital, or your employees are in pain, your co-founders got a conflict, like in all of those moments, the only thing that can keep you going through is your conviction, and that conviction cannot be borrowed. That conviction only comes when you have a dream and when you have the passion to make an impact in that space which you're chasing. So I would say, again, I would repeat what Ed was saying, that, have a large ambition and start somewhere, start today. Don't wait to start, and you will find your way through.
Ed, Rohit, learning about Kopi Kenangan's brand journey has been fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing your brand building lessons with us. I'm Dewi Fabri, and for more interesting startup stories, visit our website, sequoiacap.com, or follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Terima kasih untuk mendengarkan kami, dan sampai jumpa lagi.